Ladies and gentlemen, friends and colleagues, we've had many speakers. Usually we have it in a much smaller room. This time the response was quite overwhelming, so we had to move to this auditorium, which is a bit larger than usual. But we are especially delighted that we have with us today the Chief Minister of Penang, Mr. Lim Guan Eng. Now, many of us remember quite vividly, or at least I do, the Malaysian General Election of March 2008. We were all monitoring very closely all the Malaysian websites for the latest blow-by-blow results. And we knew then that we were witnessing quite a historic election. Mr. Lim was, of course, among the opposition candidates who won spectacular victories. His own election victory was in the parliamentary seat in Bagan and the state seat in Ayer Puteh. 3 days after that election, he was sworn in as Chief Minister of Penang. But to really introduce him, I must start at the beginning. I trust you all know that the DAP, Democratic Action Party, of which he heads, was originally the Malaysian branch of Singapore's PAP. After separation in 1965, the Malaysian PAP members, including our own Mr. Devan Nair, our former president, stayed in Malaysia and formed the DAP in October of 1965. I wish our colleague Janadas was here, because he would be the best person to introduce our guest speaker today. But Janadas is away in the US. He is our review editor based in Austin, Texas. Janadas knows best how the PAP fielded 9 candidates in the 1964 Malaysian General Election, and only one of them, Mr. Devan Nair, won in the Bangsa constituency. Mr. Nair, I thought, honoured the Bangsa voters well by serving out his full term even after separation. But thus was born the DAP, which has campaigned consistently for a Malaysian Malaysia. In the next G in 1969, DAP won big, together with the Gerakan Party. It was the victory march by the DAP and Gerakan that led to the infamous May 1969 riots. Mr. Lim's father, Mr. Lim Kit Siang, was leader of the party for many decades. I get worried when he takes notes, sort of to correct my history. But as I was saying, Mr. Lim Kit Siang, his father was leader of the party for many decades. But Mr. Lim Jr., if I may refer to him as that, began his own political career in 1986. When he was elected MP for Kota Melaka. In 1987, he was detained for 18 months under the ISA. That was not to be the first time he was to go behind bars. In 1990, he was re-elected in Kota Melaka for a second term, and in 1995 for a third term. And then in 1995, he was again charged, this time under the Sedition Act. He was sentenced again for 18 months, but was released after 12 months for, quote, good behavior, unquote. I, of course, summarize. In May 2004, he was elected Secretary General of the party. And in the 2008 election, he switched seats to contest in Penang, and the rest is the recent history that we know. I must also introduce his dear wife, who's been with him in politics. She's a politician in her own right, Betty Chu, who's joined us. Thank you for joining us. She's State Assembly person for, can I call you that? State Assembly woman for Kota Laksamana in Malacca. And they have a daughter and 3 sons. A little bit about his education, I should have said that he's born in 1960, so that makes him 49. Oops. Yeah, young man. I thought you were older than me.
Very young.
Yeah?
Very young.
I was born in Johor Bahru. There are many Johorians here. He went to LaSalle Primary English School, Batu Pahat Montfort Primary School, Batu Pahat High School, real Johor boy, you know. But he went to Malacca High School as well. And his education was in Monash University in Australia, where he did a bachelor's in economics, and then qualified as an accountant. Prior to joining politics, he was a senior executive in a bank. So, without further ado, I hope I've tried to capture your checkered history as a politician. So, it's my great pleasure to hand the mic over to Mr. Lim Guan Eng.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much. And of course, thanks very much for having us. Singapore Press Club, and I think I was asked just now whether this is the first time I've been here. Definitely it's the first time. I wouldn't come here before. I think that indicates the transformation.
Why wouldn't you come here before? You're always welcome. You have always been welcome.
When I'm the opposition in Malaysia, probably a little bit different. But anyway, that's not meant in any negative way. But just that that there were probably avenues that would not be available beforehand. And in the last general elections in 2008, we see a transformation happening in Malaysia, keeping pace with the amazing transformation globally, especially in the United States. And I always like to say this, that you would never imagine, when Obama won the presidency, who would have imagined a black man sitting in the White House? But that happened. Just as no one would have imagined me, an ex-con, sitting here before you as the Penang Chief Minister. So this was the tremendous transformation that happened in Malaysia. Not only in Penang, but also in the other 5 Pakatan Rakyat states. Of course, subsequently reduced to 4 as a result of the political shenanigans of the ruling party. But can the opposition alliance hold? That is the topic of my address. Now let's look at some figures and statistics. You look at all the by-elections that we have contested since the epoch-breaking or ground-breaking general elections in March 2008. In every single by-election, except one in Kuching, in Sarawak, Batak Ai, that is right deep in the hinterlands and populated basically by our Dayak brothers and sisters, and that was the only seat that Barisan Nasional managed to retain. In every by-election, Barisan Nasional lost, and lost heavily. The only impact that they could make was in the recent Manik Urai by-election in Kelantan. Now, of course, we started off with Kuala Terengganu, which was an UMNO seat. And not only did we win it back, we won it by a larger majority than that won by UMNO. I think that was a shock into the UMNO psyche, because it was basically 95% Malay. Number 2, of course, for Matang Pau, I thought that was a goner. Even before the poll results were announced, the only question was whether the majority could be bigger, and it was very much larger. Followed by, of course, the twin by-elections in Kedah and in Perak. It was a sort of a referendum on the power grab by Barisan Nasional. And we won both comfortably by larger margins. Which, of course, then was another by-election in Penanti. And that was it was a no-show in the sense that for the first time in history, UMNO decided to boycott a by-election. And that has never happened before. UMNO has never set out on any by-election, and they did that because they knew they were going to lose heavily. And that, of course, that seat was in Penang. And of course, our candidate who became the Deputy Chief Minister of Penang won by a huge margin. And finally, Manik Urai.